there is a reason why things happen to us in life. Sometimes things happen and we wonder, what's that about? And things change and we move or we get a new career, something happens and it feels like a big change and the life as we know it is over and we kind of wonder, what's the plan here and how does this fit into my life? But in the overall scheme of our lives, things do tend to come together, and there is a plan for our lives. One time I was traveling to Haiti, and I was on a flight from um, Toronto to Miami, and I was sitting next to a man, and I was having my Bible reading time, and I had a little Promise Keepers devotional guide, and so I was doing my Bible reading and reading from the devotional guide, and then uh, he turned to me and he said, "Are you with Promise Keepers?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And I just used their devotional guide, and so we got to talking, and then he found out that I was a Mennonite, and he said, my wife was a Mennonite, and he said, I was a missionary pilot in Africa, I think in Mozambique, if I remember right. I'm not sure what country, but he was in Africa, and he said that his wife was also working there. They weren't married then, and they met there, and she was there with Mennonite Central Committee, and then they met there and they got married. Uh, but he said, I was um, I said, my life's taken a number of turns. He was saying, I went to Laterno College in Texas, and I said I was going to be an airline pilot. And I was studying, doing all my training. And he said that um, one day there was a presentation by a mission aviation organization. I forget if it was JARS or MAF, but it was one of those two organizations that came to the college and they made a presentation and he thought, well, that's interesting, but it's not what I'm interested in. I'm going to work for one of the airlines and I'm going to be an airline pilot. But he said about 2 days later, one of the administrative people from the college called him into his office and said, you know, that organization was here at the college and made a presentation, and he said, I think you should consider being a missionary pilot. And he said, actually, I recommended you to them, and I think you should follow up on it. He was like, what? And he said, well, maybe I should check into it. So he did. And he wound up going to Africa as a missionary pilot and flew DC-3s over there. And I'm not sure what all else, but he was um, flying for this mission aviation organization. Met his wife there. They got married. They had two children, I think. And then as their children were growing up, they felt like for their family, it would be good if they would move back to the United States. So they moved to Wisconsin. And he said that he thought, what was that about? Like he was in Africa for 15 years and he thought that that was going to be his life. And then all of a sudden it wasn't. And he was back in the States and he said he was struggling with, you know, what does he do with his life now? And it didn't seem to have as much significance as what he was doing as a missionary pilot. But he got a job uh, as a pilot for a commercial pilot, a corporate pilot for a large pharmaceutical firm out of Chicago. And so he would fly their executives to meetings and so on. And he said one day he was sitting in the lounge at the airport waiting for um, them to get their clearances to be able to fly. and one of the executives was sitting there with him, and he said he got to talking to him, and he was saying, you shouldn't let Bill Gates do all the good things in Africa. Like we're a pharmaceutical company, and we should be doing something in Africa. And he told him, he said, of course, the man knew that he had spent 15 years in Africa, and so he said the executive kind of said, oh, okay, didn't really make much comment, and he said about 3 months later, he flew the executives to a board meeting of the pharmaceutical company, and when the CEO went into the board meeting, he told the pilot, he was saying, "Now stay by your cell phone because I want you to come to the meeting at some point." And he thought, "Whoa, what did I do? Like this doesn't sound good. I don't really think I I don't know what's going on, but I don't know why he's calling me into the board meeting." But he stayed by his cell phone, and then at some point the executive called him and said, "Okay, we're ready for you to come into the meeting." So he went to the meeting, and he got there, and the CEO said to him, a few months ago you mentioned to me that we shouldn't be letting Bill Gates do all the good things in Africa, and you suggested that we should be doing something in Africa. So I've talked to the board about it, and the board would like to do some charitable work in Africa. And since you have experience in Africa, we would like for you to design a program for us in Africa. We're wondering if you would do that. And he said, yeah, I could design a program for you in Africa. And he said, well, but he said, what were you thinking? Like, what size of a program were you thinking of? What do you have in mind? And the board said, well, we thought we would start with something fairly small, maybe around $10 million. So he said, okay, well, yeah, we can do a small project like that. And so he designed a project for them. And he said he flew for them for another 10 years, I think. And he said over that time, they spent about $150 million on charitable projects in Africa. And he said they liked to do their projects with church organizations because in Africa, corruption is part of the system. And he said when you deal with the church organizations, you don't totally eliminate the corruption, but you bring it down to a large degree. And so they felt like they were getting much better results and much bigger projects done with the amount of money they were spending compared to some of the big charitable foundations that were doing their work through secular organizations. So he said this pilot said he's no longer with the pharmaceutical company, but he said now he's flying for an insurance uh, executive. And he was saying this person that he's flying for now had founded an insurance company and then had sold it to a bigger company and had gotten hundreds of billions of dollars for his company. And now he flies for him. And he was on his way down to St. Martin to pick up his employer. He said 2 or 3 weeks ago he had flown him down, left the plane there, flew home commercially, and now he's flying back commercially, and then he'd fly his boss back to the United States. And he was saying, this insurance executive, he said he hasn't invested any money in Africa yet, but he's going to. He said, I'm talking to him about it. And, he said, as he looked back on his life, he said, when I left Africa, I thought, what is God doing? Like, what's this about? I thought my life was going to be invested in Africa. But he said, I found out that even as a corporate pilot in the United States, God opened up doors for me to channel funds into charitable projects in Africa. So we don't always know. Changes come. We think it looks like the end of the world. We think it looks like everything's over and all of our dreams are lost. And maybe God is just opening up other doors that we can walk through, other opportunities, things that we can do, and ways that we can make a difference in the world, even though we might not be where we want to be and be doing what we thought we would be doing for the rest of our lives.